call this meeting to order of the Acushnet Board of Health on Tuesday, April 8th at 5:04 in the afternoon. Present are myself, I'm Dave DeVignan, current chairman. To my right is Mr. McBarbadiris, board member. To my left is Joe Career, health agent, and Wanda Hammer, our secretary. Absent. Absent is member Tom Fortin. I should mention this meeting is being audio and videotaped. If anybody has any cell phone on them, please put it on vibrate. So first up, correspondence, letter from community nurse and home care statistics for February and March. Just February. We're going to table March 2025.
The influenza is still high, Dave. 69.
Yeah, 69 flus. Yeah.
It's still counting.
36 COVIDs.
Yep.
A couple of the oddballs and.
Yep. That's nothing. Well, I make a motion to place on file.
I'll second the motion. All
Yep.
in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Approval of septic design plans, subdivision plans. We have none. I was glad to see that revisions were made so that we can avoid having to come in. I'm going to skip to minutes. Let me see. We have to table both?
Yep.
Okay, so can I get a motion to table minutes for December 3rd, 2024 and January 14th, 2025?
Motion to accept.
No. You were
Table.
asked, motion table. I'll
Mention.
second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll table that to the next meeting. All right, so that brings us, we have a short agenda, so it brings us to appointments, David and Joanne. Not sure, I apologize if I say it wrong, Bechtold.
You got it right. Hey.
17 Renee Street.
Yep.
Looking for remedies to complaints, review of matters presented, votes may be taken. We did receive your letter. And looking through the letter, I saw mention of a steel trash can out by the roadside. I spoke with Joe and ordered that to be removed. I went by myself and saw that it was removed.
Correct. Yesterday morning, I think, there was a red truck that came by and
Yep, as a
yanked it in the corner.
town employee took it and put it in a dumpster.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's one element of the remedy that I was looking for. Thank you.
You're welcome. As far as everything else in your letter, trash cans opening up and trash contents blowing around the neighborhoods, that happens everywhere. We can't control that.
No, I understand that.
When we had those heavy windstorms, I found both my cans on the ground and I had to go down the street and try and pick up and chase
Right,
down.
right.
And I got the neighbor's trash and it's just,
Yeah.
that happens. What concerns me a little bit when I drove by the site was that pipe that's discharging into the street.
Yeah, that's, the water table's high and the folks up the road pump out and it runs down and it creates that, did you see the pond that's there?
I saw the little pooling water on your property.
It's adjacent to my property, but it runs in the back behind the trees that were there.
I didn't see any other pipes discharging directly onto the street. Maybe.
Yeah, there is. So there's two houses up. I don't know what the address is, Joe, and
Oh, it's the greenhouse up the street from us.
yeah, they have an underground pipe that discharges right by the telephone pole. It's a white perforated lid, and it goes right out into the street. It's right at curbside, and then the neighbors that are on the corner of Hathaway and Renee, they run a PCV pipe through the rock wall and discharge out in the front. There's a number of people doing it. So this is not my water coming from my basement. This is water that's discharged from other neighbors that happens to run down with the high perk, and then it sits on my property. So we should table this here because I'm going to bring it up at the Board of Public Works. There was a request to put in a sewer grate there, which would help solve the problem because it's going to go in the street anyway. If you look, it runs over the curb. Whether I evacuate it and make it happen a little more quickly to solve the problem, or let it run over naturally in the wintertime, it's a pervasive issue because it freezes and creates sheets of ice from the running. I don't have to pump anything. It will saturate across my lawn, and it will continually run over the curb regardless. And then probably about 2 weeks from now, early May, it all dries up when we get through the winter season. So it's a pervasive issue from January through April, when the ground is really saturated from the winter, the rains, the lack of growing, right? You don't have a good root system in the grass and everybody's pumping a little bit more, particularly with, what did we just have, 4 days in a row of rain, right? So that's the issue.
Yeah, the water lazy.
But I want to go back to the trash just to see if we can make one more element aware. So I brought a diagram down, if I may, just to show you this is an aerial view of my property and my neighbor's property, and where that circle is where the can was placed, so it was directly in the front view. And by the way, there's a bunch of compost going on over here, but let's not worry about that. We've tried to deal with that with former letters from, I believe his name was Ralph Urban. And it's not so much, I understand garbage blows, but what he does, so his frontage is right here. This is his house, Chadwick. And he pulls his cans. He used to put his cans right around here. But if you look at this photo, he puts his cans all the way over in front of my house. Trash is picked up on Thursday. This can with the lid open will get put out on Monday afternoon or Tuesday. And it will sit out there till the garbage men come on Thursday. If it's not full, he'll back out with his pickup truck and dump garbage in it until it is full like that through the week. And then it'll get taken in Saturday or Sunday. So out of 7 days a week, the can will be out in front of my house 4 or 5 days of that week. And these are just recent pictures in the fall. What you'll get is garbage, birds, squirrels will rip the stuff up. You know, this is probably 2 days before trash pickup. And you'll get the garbage all over the front of my yard, including confidential police reports about drug busts in New Bedford. And I had the Acushnet police come over, they put the gloves on, they helped me clean it up. They told me to complain to you guys for it. So it's not, if you set the trash out and you put it in front of your own property or frontage the night before and retrieve it, I don't care when he retrieves it, the morning after 2 days. I don't care what he does here. It's dragging it, you know, that I have 150 feet of frontage, he's got about 50. He walks 75 feet over in front of my house, right? He takes that extra walk and he drags it out there and he leaves it there all week. That's what the issue is. It's leaving it there all week. So
that's a recycled bin?
No, it's the garbage.
Does it
He
look like
puts them
one?
both there.
Well, it looks like a yellow cap to it, so it's recycled.
Brown cap, see it's open. That's the
Okay.
garbage sticking out of it. He puts that out there in front of my house. I've tried to move it, he'll come out and move it back. The Acushnet police come and nicely ask him to move it, he refuses to do it. You know, he's a New Bedford police officer, he's going to, you know, be arrogant, do whatever he wants. You know, we've had property boundary disputes with the neighbor behind us, so there's a history here where there's been some challenges, and I think I put in my letter, I've submitted some complaints to the mayor of New Bedford, the professional standards of conduct of the New Bedford police, and then the chief of police of Acushnet told me to go to this Massachusetts state level board of conduct called POST, Professional Officers Certification Board or something like that. They may be able, because it's not criminal conduct, but officers go through training to make their neighborhoods that they live in and patrol in better places to live. And this behavior seems to be 180 degrees opposite that. We've had mattresses dragged in front of the house. We had an old rusted gas grill there last week, and he claimed to have it on Craigslist, which doesn't even make sense. I mean, why would you put something in front of your neighbor's house that's rotted and old and then claim to the police officer that gets called that it's on Craigslist? So again, I get your point, but it's a pervasive issue because the cans sit out there for 2/3 of the week. And you know, most people take their cans in and put them in, you know, an area by their house, wherever they take their trash out. He leaves his cans in the roadway and takes his trash out in his pickup truck and then stops in front of my house and continues to accumulate it. And if it gets all over the place, it gets all over the place. Only on one occasion when he was away, they made his wife and his daughters come out, the cops, and clean up the mess. He refuses to do it if he's home when they get called, but his wife complied, and then she dragged the trash cans back over, so she probably wants to keep the peace a little bit more than he does. So I don't know if there's any town bylaws to leaving your garbage in front of another neighbor's property for the better part of the business week open.
I don't know of any bylaws. Is this a week that he's taken off?
This week?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about where he is this particular week, but
No, I mean, as far as his trash cans, there are no trash cans in front yesterday or today.
yeah.
I drove by and looked. I didn't
Right,
see-
no,
he
they're
actually
not.
took them in, I
Yeah,
think
he
Saturday.
took them in. He took them in, so.
So is this like a periodic occurrence?
It's, what would you say? I mean, you.
Usually every Tuesday night, he puts them out, and then they stay there until like Saturday.
Yeah, so.
The garbage pickup is
Probably if you
Thursdays
go
on
look tomorrow,
our
you'll
street.
probably see them.
Mm-hmm.
And then every now and then, there's an aberration if he's away, on some business or something like that, but it's, the frequency rate is 80% of the time, the cans will be out there 4 or 5 days a week during the business week, right? They're not put out Thursday morning or even Wednesday night. They're put out
Usually Tuesday.
48 hours before or more, and then the cans will stay out there 48 hours post pickup, just left in the roadway.
See,
So,
when Board of Health was in charge of garbage pickup, we had our regs, but when the selectmen or BPW took
Yeah.
over, they made their own, I guess their own kind of regs. I know the
Yeah.
regs were that you're supposed to put out to the curb line,
Yeah.
or the edge of the road. If it was in your property, they wouldn't pick it up. It had to be
Right.
on town's property. So, I don't know if that's town's property he's putting his garbage cans. I mean, there's
It's-
nothing.
it's not my personal property, but
it's
the
a
garbage
public
will
way.
blow on my
Yeah.
personal
It-
property.
No, it's in the public
But the
way.
thing is, the Board of Health can't really
Okay.
do anything about the garbage can being out there.
What about the garbage cans across the street? Doesn't bother you?
There's no trash that blows on my property. The lids are left closed.
And
They're
she pushes
put
it
underneath
underneath the
some
trailer.
kind of tractor trailer. I mean,
Yeah, somebody
I'd
puts
like
a
to-
tractor
I-
trailer right in the public way.
it's been there for
Supposed to.
years,
Well,
so.
that's from Norman Fredette.
Yeah,
That's
we've,
Fredette's.
we've reported that to, in the wintertime, it becomes a problem because there's a parking ban and it would impede, there's a fire hydrant
Clouds,
there.
yeah.
It would impede like a large hook and ladder, if you
Sure.
can't turn around and
Is
so
there
on,
a
it's a
truck
safety
hooked
issue.
up to that trailer?
No,
No.
it just sits there.
They can-
Best I can tell,
The police department can tow it because there's a bylaw in town that they made, I think about 10 or 15 years ago,
Yeah.
that you cannot leave a trailer unattended unless it's hooked up to a trailer, to a tractor.
No, it hasn't.
no, it's
But
been,
the
it's
thing
been
is-
decoupled for months.
That trailer is registered,
Mhm.
but there's no insurance. What covers the insurance on the trailer
cab.
is the tractor or the truck towing it,
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
car.
I was, it's partly parked up on the back
Lawn.
wheels are up on the lawn in the right of way. She tried to have, obviously, Mr. Fredette passed, I think everybody's aware of that, right?
Yeah.
And I believe they use it for large hay
horses,
bale
I
storage to
think.
feed their horses, and that's where they keep the hay. I'm guessing, I don't know for sure.
Is that on a private way, or is that still on the town
It's
property?
public property.
It's
Still
on
on
public
it's
property,
still on
it's
town
not on
property.
private property. And, but Norman used to leave it right out in the street, and then once a month it would get moved. It would get picked up like 11 o'clock at night, and would be back by 5 o'clock the next morning, kind of an overnight trip once a month. My guess is he replenished whatever was in it and parks it back there. And again, I don't have a big problem with that. That's on the other side of the street. It doesn't really, it's a detractor from an eyesore in a neighborhood that's otherwise nice. I get that. And, since her husband passed and she puts her trash cans out there, I'm going to assume she's probably not as able, she's a woman versus a man. She doesn't want to drag her can. He used to drag him out with his, an ATV or golf cart thing. And, so I let that slide. If she was putting the garbage deliberately in front of my property and leaving the lid open all week, that's a whole different story. That's what Mr. Chabot does. He deliberately goes out of his way to create a condition. I believe what Miss Fredette is doing is just dealing the best she can with the loss of her husband.
So,
Yeah.
That's how I would sum
You
that
can't
up.
expect your wife, if something, God
No.
forbid, something happened to you,
Yeah.
her dragging your garbage cans out and all,
No, well, that's
stuff
why
like
you were
that.
asking me if it bothers me. And of course, the trailer there bothers
No,
me,
deal
but
with it.
I look at it as a different set of circumstances.
Did you ever talk to this police officer from New Bedford?
I have.
What was his comment?
The same kind of comments that we're having today. There's a neighbor dispute amongst the two. It continues. It's been going on for over a decade.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of foolish things that go on in the neighborhood.
I mean,
You
if
know.
it's a dispute between one neighbor to the other, that's putting us like in the middle of it, and we shouldn't be in the middle of it.
Well,
If there was rats around there and you had proof there was rats around it, then we'd investigate even more. You know?
I mean, do you have a do you ever set up a video camera to watch what's going on? Because your claim is
Yeah, there's definitely animals drawn. Here's a photograph I snapped where he dumped a compost pile adjacent, that's my fence, and there's clearly animals there rummaging through it.
Oh, you know there's animals out in the
Yeah.
woods.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
There's cats
But
out there, there's wild dogs
there's
out there,
videos and-
coyotes, everything, you know?
The issue, the kind of the icing on the cake issue was, you know, putting deer carcass hanging out of a garbage can. That's you know, that's eventually gonna draw rodents of some
Did you
type.
see that, Joe?
Yeah, it was a very decomposed skeletal remain of a deer. It wasn't a rotting carcass, so to say, but it was definitely not okay.
It's been since removed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which I'm
yeah.
happy about because that was,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry, who does
You
that?
guys wanna take a look, this is, that's what he had out there. Right.
That can's gone, so
Yeah,
we can take
yeah.
that off the table.
You can take it off the table, that's why I said that. The only thing that's left is the rocks that he weighed it down with, but I don't care about that, he can clean them up, right? When the guys picked the can up, it's been there for 4 years, and so the bottom rotted out, and the rocks tumbled all over the place. He weighed it down so it wouldn't blow away.
That's something I would personally just go pick up and throw in the woods.
What's that?
That's something I would personally just take and throw in the woods. I mean.
The garbage can?
No,
the
small
rocks.
rocks.
Oh, yeah, no,
like this,
that was
you know,
just,
getting petty.
I'm not worried about that. That
Do you
was
have
just-
physical evidence of him tipping the covers over so that the garbage is loose
Spilled
and,
all over.
and, you know?
You mean with the cans that he puts out?
Yes.
I mean,
They're-
they're left open when he puts a bag in, so that's the physical, I showed you the pictures. He opens the can, drops the bag in, and it's left open.
So their original complaint, I responded, I sent a letter to Mr. Shavarek,
Yeah,
you know, reminding him when his trash day was. And I did have the opportunity to speak to him, and he was fine with it. You know, he got the letter, he knew what the letter was, and,
yeah.
you know, about when to put the trash out. I said, you can just put it out when you're supposed to and not before. The only thing I know about him, from that standpoint, and a couple of pictures that he showed me, was that he works a night shift. Sometimes he does put it out early, because of him going to work. And sometimes he does bring it in late because of when he gets home from work.
I'm fine with
But
that.
other than that,
Well,
you know,
that's common practice. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
I'm taking off, I might
within
go put it
24
out there
hours
2 days.
protocol,
You know.
but putting it out Monday or Tuesday, 48 hours plus.
Yep.
And,
But
you know,
I will
again-
say, I guess what I'm asking you about the covers, like flipping,
Yeah,
where I live, the covers get flopped over from the wind all the time. I can't control it, I can't.
no, I get that.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, so what am I supposed to do, you know?
We've got a bad case of crows in this area here.
Yeah, no,
So
I
they
get
come
that.
in-
And if the lid is not totally tight, those damn crows go in there and just pick
Yeah.
everything apart. They throw it
The
all
lid
over.
is one element of
Then
the
my
problem.
wife don't
Yeah.
work, she stays home.
No,
And
no, I
my
get
wife
that.
goes out there and picks up the garbage and puts it inside of my container. That way it won't be blown all over the
Yeah.
place. And she
And
shouldn't have to do that
And then,
either.
every time there's a holiday, Thanksgiving,
Yeah, you got a
Christmas,
day that's skipped.
no,
Chuck
it's
full.
not, that's not my point, is everybody's got their bags
Up in
way
the-
over the
Oh, yeah.
top, and the lids are
We
like
do
this.
too. We do too.
And,
We-
and
Yeah.
then we have weeks where they have issues with
Yeah.
employees, and our trash wasn't picked up for a whole week.
Yeah,
And I kept leaving it out there, some people pulled it back in, I was afraid to double
Right,
stack
but
the
the-
next
I
week.
remember
but-
that.
yeah, the one element,
Yeah.
unless you're doing this too, is I don't think you drag your can 75 feet out of the way in front of your neighbor's
Well,
property and leave it
That
there.
clearly is a spite thing.
Yeah,
But I
that's
don't-
the issue.
I don't think we have any control
Okay.
over where he puts his trash can.
No, and I did call the police. I started with that. There's 7 or 8 service calls over the past number of months because of garbage all over the property. They did respond, and their advice to me was, we can talk to them, but we can't make them do anything, like you were saying. So we'd recommend you go down to the town and see if they can put some teeth in a letter with a fine or something like that. If you,
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I drove by, I've driven by a couple of times, and he's got a retreat lot, he's got very little frontage.
Oh,
And the
50
driveway shifts off to the right, there's a mailbox to the left, so he really has no choice but to put it to the right of his entry,
yeah.
which might be in your frontage, but.
No, it's
so-
not my
so-
frontage, that's his frontage. There's like a 50-foot element of the radius.
Right, but to me, he's gotta go to the right of his driveway, and anywhere within 15 feet of his driveway seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
To go another 60 feet is unreasonable,
Yeah.
it's being childish, but we don't have any
Yeah.
control over it. Perhaps the BPW would, I don't know.
I wonder
Yeah,
if-
no, it's
I
no
wonder if
big
the
deal,
garbage
but-
guys told him, Where he's showing it on the, right on the curve in the
Yeah.
cul-de-sac there, right in here.
So this is what we got.
Right.
So his driveway,
Yeah, let me show you the.
No, I remember the man showing the
his
picture.
driveway is here, Norman Fredette's over here,
Yeah.
and their driveway was over here.
There's
And,
the
and there's bushes over
There it is,
here.
right here.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
driveway is here. See,
Yeah.
see this
So
radius?
maybe
This
the
is his
garbage
ra-
men told him it's easier for them to pick if it's here than over here to
No,
make that
no,
turn.
he used
I
to
don't
put it
know, I don't know.
They picked it up there. He used
Oh,
to
did
put
they pick it up
Oh,
there?
yeah, yeah. He just, the
I don't
last
know.
couple of years,
No.
he's been doing all, like, there's in front of my house, he piled a mattress out there. There's other cans laying over, there's numerous examples. He
I've
just-
seen mattresses there before.
Yeah, That's
Yeah.
his mattresses in front of my property, right? The line between our houses is where that fence is.
I can't tell what this is in relation to this.
So this here, it would be, you see the wet spot in the road? That mattress is laying right about there. It's clearly in front of my
As the
property.
fence here,
Is
Yeah,
this-
that's the
this-
fence, yeah.
This right here is the
Yeah,
fence?
exactly. It's laying
so it's right
over
about
in
in
here.
here, it's
yeah.
always in here.
Where he had that metal garbage can was right there. That was right on the bordering edge of his frontage. So that's the 50-foot frontage that I mentioned. And that's just other examples of cans laying out there, blowing, stuff blowing in the yard. And it's not, I get you guys can't do anything about it. I just, and that's, so this is when we first prepared it. That line is the dividing line between the frontage. So if you were to take this line and go out to the center of the road, I put, because he was coming over with his lawnmower and ripping up our stuff, and he would take his garbage and deliberately walk it past the corner over onto my frontage lot when we didn't have cans and put it there. So it's been going on for a while. When he first moved in, he did put his cans right here. There's plenty of room for the truck. Where they have a problem is with Fredette's, because they gotta back up and reapproach with the big tractor trailer there.
Is this the driveway right here?
No,
That's a
let me see your
lot.
pen. That, if I were to take and draw a line from here to the center of the road, we had it surveyed, and the survey said that, they bisect the road when they did the survey. So that piece of 4x4 that's freshly laid down a few years back is right here, right like that. And what he did is he walked stuff over and puts it in my frontage. This would be his frontage, which is enough to park about 2 cars, like 50 feet. So he's got plenty of room to put his cans there. But this is all history, just to show you the examples of what, and that's the side, the back.
You ever talk to this guy?
Do I ever talk to him? Only in an interview at the New Bedford Professional Standards Office. We didn't talk directly with him, but we got interviewed regarding problems, and then he got interviewed and told his side of the story. Probably like what you guys did here.
Sometimes it's good to talk to a neighbor and get the understanding between the two people. And
I don't have any problem.
you can
talking
always
to him.
walk away, No.
No, what he's done, we're off topic like we were about the water drainage, but he's tried to criminally charge me multiple times. I'll give you an example. I put outdoor lighting in my yard. He felt it was harassing him, so he went down to the Acushnet police and drew up charges instead of talking to me about the lighting. He came around with a weed whacker when I first had the fence put in, and he was grinding the base of the plastic. A weed whacker will damage a PCV fence. So I put a planter bucket there. He had me criminally charged because he felt he couldn't cut his lawn with a weed whacker. So we went to New Bedford District Court. The judge laughed at it and threw it out. But, so that's, and then you suggest I talk to him about this?
No, I don't know the situation.
Yeah.
This is the first that I've heard about it.
So the Berniers, I don't know, Judith and Brian Bernier, who live on Hathaway Road, they own an airstrip type of lot that goes behind it abuts all the properties on Renee Street. They're behind us in the woods. So that would be this lot here that you can just see the edge of, right?
Right.
There was a property boundary dispute. 3 tenants in common were Fredette, Chabrick, and me. She claimed the line was down much deeper, and we went to Boston Common Civil Court, where they do property boundary disputes. We had our surveyors, she had hers, and it was getting expensive, $70,000, $80,000 to have surveys and lawyers and judges walk the land. So he lived in between the 2 members that decided to keep the fight up. He relinquished early, so he didn't show up for a court session. The judge asked, "Where's Mr. Chabrick?" And I said, "I think he dropped out." And he drew an immediate judgment of a forfeiture against them. They forfeited. So even if we won, there would have been a chunk.
The judge would have to go according to engineers that surveyed the property.
Well,
I
there
mean,
was
these
two
guys are
differences of
registered.
opinion.
These guys are registered, and when they go in, they gotta make sure that they're on the money.
That's why you file with land court, they make the.
Yeah, land court made the
determination.
decision
Yeah.
ultimately in her favor, but he got withdrawn from the case early because
That was Judy, right?
Judy
Yeah.
and Bryant Bernier, right. And so he became enraged at me because we had the surveyor in common. The surveyor told me, he said, "Oh my God, Chabrick just bitched me out because you mentioned that the fact that he was no longer representing himself in court." But the judge asked, "Where is he?" And that was my response. So that was the catalyst that caused all the problems. He felt he was going to ride our coattails if we won, which we didn't win. The judge decided in Bernier's favor, but there's never been any other issues that I know of. And then you got the issues with the lights and the planter bucket and the garbage and, all of that stuff, so. It's a long story. So,
I know.
can I talk to him?
No.
I'd be willing to, but I don't think he'd be willing to. Otherwise, we would have talked already.
Well,
That's the only way you're gonna settle something up.
yeah, I mean, unfortunately,
People
you've been given avenues by the police chief
Yeah,
to pursue with that kind of evidence that just not being a good neighbor.
yeah. I mean,
That's what it appears to be by putting, junk,
guys removed the
junk
can.
and cans in front of
Yeah.
yours, but we can't really do much about it.
no, that's fine. I think going forward, what I fully expect him to do is probably put something else out there where the can was retrieved from once he realizes it. What I need to do is determine from the Acushnet police, can I take my own action and retrieve it? Because what he will do, if I take it off of town property, which the police say, by the way, if it's out there and it's been out there for more than 48 hours, it's considered discarded by the resident. He'll try to criminally charge me for property theft or something like that. I know he'll come up with something. Yeah, that's why I never touched the can. I would have taken a hand truck and moved it myself, but, I don't want to deal with hiring a lawyer and going to New Bedford court for
Moving a
essentially.
can that's all rotted.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's costing you money, for an attorney to represent you, and they're not cheap. They're $200 or $300 an hour, right?
Mhm.
What they do cost. And then.
He knows that because he deals with, that's his job as a police officer. He deals with, I'm sure, much higher elements of
You would
crime.
think as being a police officer, you would listen and help.
My
out
point
your neighbor.
exactly. So
I don't
I think we've made our point, and I want to thank you guys for getting the can off the street. All I can tell you is if I see something that rises to that level again, we'll start the process over again and see if we can get somebody to retrieve it. The one that told me to do this was I called the state and I talked to Robert, I can't remember his last name, something. He was head of housing and health and services up at the state level. And he said that he gave me advice that all the municipalities have different standards and adhere a little bit differently to how they enforce it. And some are lighter and some are more. But he said I would go ask for a meeting, make your case, and see what they'll do. He told me to let him know, and if I didn't get traction, he was going to look for other alternatives. But it's been moved, so I think we're good. As far as the yeah, cross your fingers. As far as the daily garbage, I can go out there in the street and roll his cans back, and we can have this confrontation back and forth, and we'll see if it dies down. At this point, when all these pictures and everything were taken, we were in our 40s and 50s. Now we're in our 60s, and we're ready to retire. And
Oh, you're still young.
Well, you know what I mean.
John, he's still young.
I'd like to try and enjoy retirement and not have to deal with the nonsense. So it is what it is.
Yeah,
Right.
And having bad neighbors is tough. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Well,
If you got good neighbors, I take care of my neighbors. I like my neighbors, they're all good neighbors.
Yeah.
I want to keep it that way.
We have some good neighbors
Yeah.
up the street, so.
Yeah.
Well, the Board of Selectmen are now in charge of the BBW. They
Okay.
used to be a Board of Public Works,
Right.
but
I
that's
remember
been
that.
folded
It
into
was
the.
down the hall here or something.
Right, they used to have a formal board like the Board of Health and other boards. And
Yeah, I
now
remember. We were-
the Board of Selectmen are in charge of Board of Public Works,
So would you recommend that's where I go to seek a remedy for the drainage issue? Because
Uh,
I don't
no,
want to put a pipe
well,
there
yes,
more than anybody else
Yes,
does.
you got the drainage issue, that is
Yeah.
in their wheelhouse.
Okay.
And also in their wheelhouse is whether they can police the location of garbage, cans.
It's trivial, but at the same time, it's aggravating when it gets ripped up and thrown around.
I can see the point, I have a lot of vegetation in front of my property, so if somebody did that, I wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
But if I was looking at it, it would bug me.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
need for it.
Yeah, because the crows
Yeah.
do come and tear stuff
Yeah.
apart, that's what happens.
But again, I do want to thank you guys. I know it's, you hate seeing people come in with constant complaints like, oh my God, not these people again, right? I can only imagine.
I never met these people before. Did they ever come in?
No, I mean, we talked to
Yeah.
Mr. Korea here, and
30 years
he's, he knows the street all too well, and he's heard everybody's side of the
I've been down that
story.
street years ago.
Yeah,
I'm talking 30 years ago.
30 years ago. We didn't live there 30 years ago. 20 years ago, we
Yeah.
moved in.
Well, I've been down that street 30 years ago.
That's when Norman must have first started building
Yeah.
the cul-de-sac.
And there was problems then,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't know who that was with, but
Well, I
Not
didn't-
us.
we had a challenge when we pursued the first path of the DPW in that they said the town didn't properly, they weren't in receipt of it as a public byway. Norman didn't file the right paperwork, and recently we found out that's all been rectified since his passing. So now it's part of the
Town.
town.
See Dan Menard and see what he has. He's a superintendent of the.
Yeah, I know the
Yeah,
name.
we know.
We know the name.
He's a real nice man to talk
Oh, yeah,
with
yeah.
and deal with. If any way he can help you out with them people.
They had
he will
plans
help
all
you.
drawn up, and they were gonna put a drain in, they were gonna recap the street and connect it. There was a drain over by the telephone pole in front of Fredette's, and they were gonna
Yeah.
connect it with our side, which then would capture the runoff, and you wouldn't need to pump, because it gets safely discharged underneath.
Because you're not supposed to discharge water into. a
No, I get that, I
Right.
get that.
That's
And-
been a
What-
bylaw for a long time.
I was involved in a project on another side street off of Hathaway Road, and
Yeah.
everybody pumped into their yards,
Right,
and then the yards drained into the street.
that's what's happening in front of
Well,
my property.
that's legal. What you're doing, I don't think is legal. You
So-
have a pipe actually elevated,
It's
shooting
laying
water right
it's
into
laying on the
street.
grass and it goes to the curb.
It looked like it was above grade to me.
There's a picture there.
It's laying on the grass.
Okay, well, it's discharging literally onto the pavement.
Yeah, it is.
Right,
Yeah.
that's not legal.
Okay.
If somebody discharges back on their own property and it drains to the street.
Let me ask you this.
Then they
Is it-
can't-
is this-
If you build a brand new home today, he can even tell you, he's an engineer, that you have to put drains on your surface drains from your roof conductors into pits.
That's what's
With
around my
stone.
house. We have that.
Right, their
Including
their
the septic.
problem is, the house was built back when they didn't do soil evaluations.
Right.
So
But it's
so
not
the
even
sellers
my water,
don't want
it's the neighbor's runoff.
Well, it looks
at
like
my
the
perk.
water table.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a.
Let me ask you this, because this is
high
what I was gonna do too, and you can tell me since you understand the bylaws. I don't have any problem removing the pump. The only problem that I have is then the yard floods and we get the junk in the street in the wintertime. And it does cause my trees there to sit in,
Inches and
underwater
inches of water.
and
There's no other place on the property to discharge the
there
water?
is. I can discharge it in my driveway, which will then run out into the street. But it ends up in the street anyway, because when you get enough of accumulation, it runs over the curb.
What about the back? It goes uphill?
It goes uphill.
It's all
Water-
uphill.
Water comes from the back. It all accumulates there.
We get-
That's the lowest.
Well, what I
one.
was getting at is this other neighborhood, and I forget the side street, maybe it was Green Meadow.
Yeah.
Yeah. it was-
Everybody was,
Yeah, Brookside.
everybody had the same exact issue.
Problem.
And Dan did put in a curtain drain to collect so that everybody can hook up their cellars into the drain, and it went down the street into the
Okay.
catch basin and
Yeah.
discharge. So that's another reason to talk to the Board of Selectmen about,
Okay.
and it's a drain that they would put in the grass, ruins people's grass that they don't own, they think they own.
I
it.
don't care about that.
Right, but,
Yeah.
the shoulder of
We
the
can solve the
road, there's a
drainage
10,
problem.
12-foot section, and they ran a pipe and a stone trench, so
So they
everybody
ran,
could.
they ran a French drain
French
all
drain,
around.
everybody could tie into it, and then eventually you got to the catch basin in the back, and it went
Yep.
where all the other
Yep,
drainage
okay,
goes.
so I'll
And that
try
takes
to
it,
do
and it
that.
takes it off the street, that was the issue, is
And I
getting
agree
it
with
off the
that.
street.
Right now, if they put the drain in on the edge of the curb, it would still go over the curb and be caught in the street, but it wouldn't run all out in the middle and
Right.
create.
The idea is to
ice
get
skid.
it subsurfacely into a pipe, into the last catch basin,
Yeah.
which discharges back into the woods.
Yeah, I'll
where it's supposed to.
investigate it, but I just want to make sure I'm crystal clear on one thing. If I reroute the hose to drain on my driveway, which then exits into the street, that's still an issue?
You still draining.
I'm not draining directly into the street, I'm draining on my property, but we'll end up in the street.
I don't know, I'd have to see the logistics, I couldn't, I
think-
don't have a visual of what
Going
you're saying.
back to years ago when they
Just
made
grade
this
up the street.
bylaw, that you weren't supposed to run your water from your driveway into the street. You're supposed to have a drain in front of your driveway to catch the water, not to go in the street.
That makes a lot of sense.
But when the hell, where are you gonna put the water if there's no subsurface drains in there?
There's nothing
It's
there.
gonna go some,
Yeah.
the man upstairs put it there, he's gonna
Yeah.
take it away.
Let me
know, like-
remove the pipe, I'll reroute it, but it will still go out in the street until another 2 weeks from now when the water starts drying up, right? Mid to late April.
Collectively, all of your neighbors that have the same sump pump issues where they're discharging,
Yeah.
you should collectively get an appointment with the Board of Selectmen about
Okay.
putting in that drain.
Yeah, get your
Yeah, it's
neighbors.
all on my side of
It's
the
something
street.
they do, you know, and all
Get a
over town,
petition.
yeah.
I mean, I want to make sure I want
Leave
to
the
fix the
cop out of
problem,
it.
but I want to do it in a productive way. The other neighbors, we don't have any issues with. They're newer, moved in, but I don't want to cause issues with them.
No, what you do is get a petition, say, look, we're having a problem here.
Petition.
Let's, if you want to sign a petition, everybody signs a petition, give it
Okay.
to the selectmen, they look at it, and if we have the budget
Okay.
to put that in, I'm sure they would put it in. Maybe
That's
not this
something-
year, maybe next year, who knows?
Right, they'll put
That's
it in
fine.
their schedule, but that's something they would do themselves, they wouldn't.
Yeah,
wouldn't-
no,
yeah.
they can do that. Then.
Yeah,
It's just
street-
dig a
street
trench,
construction.
Yeah, there are a lot
put the
of-
stone, put the pipe, and that's it.
The new subdivisions, the drainage is designed to accept all the water from driveways, accept all the water that
Yeah.
comes off of the
This was
yards
never
and.
designed that way, our street.
Right, the older streets like that, you know, they're not, and a lot of the houses are in the water table, so
Well,
you're
now that-
you're recycling water, groundwater, and pumping it out onto the street.
Yeah, well, now that we know that, the street is finally turned over to the town properly, we can go back to Menard and,
But you're saying go through the selectmen
Yeah,
versus
or
directly to
selectmen, they-
the Board of Public Works, right?
I would suggest you petition to get in front of the select board.
yeah.
Okay.
Because they did draw plans up. We were actually at a meeting that they were showing us the plans on boards and everything, but then the lawyer said, oh, the street
street's
isn't
not
turned
turned
over,
over,
we
so
can't do
then
this.
they couldn't do
So
anything.
hopefully, maybe they still have the
This
plans
was like 10
from-
years ago. The
way back
problem would
when.
have been solved by now.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's probably around the time they did the other one, and that's
Yeah.
about the same time.
yeah. So
Go see,
maybe-
go see the selectmen.
Yes.
Explain the situation, say, listen, can we put a petition in to have subsurface drains in the
Yep.
street, or French drain?
They
mentioned
probably
French-
still have the plans that were
Yeah.
drawn up somewhere here.
And
in the
I
file.
I'm sure they do.
I did see bleeding into the road from two other properties upstream.
And that's, though,
That-
if you look
those people are
closely, that's
pumping,
where
yeah.
they have a PCV pipe.
I
buried
didn't
in
see
the
it,
ground.
and yours was
There's a cap.
glaringly obvious.
Yeah.
I wasn't staring it to see.
So-
Obviously, there were two, there was another.
On the other side-
entry point from.
Yeah.
On the other side of Renee Street, the side that the trailer's on, when you go all the way up north and you get on the corner, what's his name, Marks?
He took it all down though.
Oh, he's got a rock wall there. He runs a pipe from his basement all the way, it is elevated, it's like a foot off the ground, through the rock wall, and it pumps out onto Hathaway Road. And there's a
Yeah.
couple of other people
He,
that do
he
that.
took that down now.
Yeah, so he just does it during the winter months. Like, it's a problem in our neighborhood in the winter months. It's not
Sure.
so bad in the summer, so.
Always been.
All right, good advice. We'll pursue that. I will remove the pipe. Give me,
Well,
I don't know,
it's
till the weekend.
saturated, it's hard to walk
Till the
through there.
weekend.
It's
I'll get
all
it out by
flooded.
the weekend, because if I walk there now, it's like,
I don't personally have a problem, just saying it.
no,
Yeah.
we didn't, I knew.
That's what I
that-
noticed.
I knew there was a town bylaw there, but I was, my thought process is, because I don't fully understand that town bylaw is, it's gonna end up in the street anyway, whether I pump it or it drains over the curb, it will be in the street. So I thought I was, by evacuating it and getting it out quicker, but if it's an issue, I'll stop doing it. And I know, I'm sure Chabrick or something will try to file a complaint against me because of it's the tit for tat thing. So I'll go ahead and do the right thing, and I'll remove the pipe, and we'll see if we can find another way to deal with it. If I have to, I can probably find another area on my property to drain it in the front, maybe over in the middle, without it going on the street. So we'll see what we can do. So I actually dug, I have a sump pump well with all crushed stone around it. I put like a 4-foot deep hole, and it's 5 feet wide, and then I put the can in there, perforated, and then filled it with crushed stone and dropped a pump in it. So it's like what you put in your basement. It's just in the ground at grade level. The cap is at grade level, and so it saturates with water and picks up the water and it pumps it out. I'll redirect the exit hose across elsewhere in my yard. We'll see if we can fix that.
Can't ask for better than that.
What's that? Well, it's pumping in the street now, which is not a good thing, so we'll fix that.
Well, it ain't gonna hurt the street now, it's in the wintertime, when it freezes
Well,
up.
I mean,
Yeah.
we'll do the right thing. We just didn't know all the details, and I'll go in front of the board.
Yeah, go see them and see what they-
Yeah.
what they have to say.
The petition thing, right? If you can get a few neighbors to
Get a
chime
petition
in.
in, if all the neighbors sign for it, maybe one may not sign, your friend there, your neighbor.
Well, I won't go in that direction. I'll go up.
But
I'm
don't
just
even-
worried, there's newer neighbors that moved in, and they bought the house, which has the pump going right out to the street.
First of all, they're gonna say, is that gonna cost me any money? Just say, no, town will have to put it in,
Yeah.
at town's expense.
Yeah,
Shouldn't cost them nothing.
other
Yeah.
than maybe an increase in taxes at some point.
That doesn't work
They're
out.
paving roads, they put
It's gonna
drainage.
go up anyways.
Yeah, it goes up every
Just
year.
did a bunch of drainage on Mendel Road,
All
what's
right.
it, Mendel Road? When you
Yes,
come off of Hathaway
yes,
Street
yeah,
down-
Mendel's,
They
it was
just,
sheet flowing
they
across
had
the road.
problems with the high line up there draining down.
Yeah, I
in the
know.
winter.
Yeah.
I know.
And they put all drains in there, it didn't cost the taxpayer,
Yeah.
cost the taxpayers money, but it
Yeah.
didn't cost the people money that they wouldn't buy the house.
Yep.
So
Yep.
If they do that for you, it'll eliminate a lot of problems with water.
Yeah, it
No,
would.
I know, yeah. All right.
Do your thing,
One problem solved. Thank you again.
hopefully.
I'm hoping I don't have to repeat this nonsense, so we'll see what happens if the
I
area
won't
stays.
forget.
What's
I'm like an elephant, I don't forget.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
gentlemen.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Can I get a motion to place it on file?
Motion to place on file.
I'll second the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to sign the vouchers,
Second. I resigned them.
all in favor?
Yep.
Aye, motion carries.
There's only two, I think.
Next scheduled meeting date, plug a date in now,
We are on, say the 13th.
What is it?
or May
Just
13th?
the 13th. This is 6th, 13th, 20th.
Okay, May 13th, we'll tentatively set the next meeting date. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
I'll second the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are now adjourned.